Hi, and welcome back to the Joyful Balance podcast, your favorite podcast when it comes to neuroscience, psychology, and nutrition. I'm one of your hosts, Denise, a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, and I'm joined here by
Meera, and I am a nutritionist with a background in psychology and neuroscience.
Whoop Whoop. We're here to guide you through the very complicated journey, which is life. And we are trying to make it a little bit less alone for you guys. So we are trying to, share all the knowledge we have and learn alongside yourselves how neuroscience and nutrition and psychology are all interlinked. We are just at that intersection. So we've had a couple of episodes recently where we were talking about the brain and we were talking about emotions. We got a little bit sidetracked. Mm-hmm. However, we're coming back to the brain.
We are.
It's quite important and it is such a unknown for many of us. And the benefit of having Meera here is that she will share with us a lot of information. And listen, guys, you might need to listen it twice just because some terms you're not familiar with and maybe some others you would have learned in biology, but you may not remember them. And I'm not joking, it's very useful. So, yeah.
Buckle up, guys. So in a previous episode, I kind of covered a very grand tour of the brain and what it does and how, what I didn't quite cover is how it does it. So I'm going to just go through a couple of points that I want you to hold on to. And this episode is actually more about, nutrition and the brain and what we actually know. But I'll still be covering some brainy bits anyway. So just to remind you, your brain weighs like nearly about 1.5 kilos. It's a heifer. And that's because it's made up of about 60% fat. Fat is super important in terms of like the scaffolding for your brain cells. And as I mentioned in biology, the way that a thing is structured in your body relates to its function. It's very, very important for its function. So fats not only basically build your brain cells, it also helps to insulate them, which means it's almost like the insulation around your electrical cables so that you can send and receive your signals really, really fast. Now, speaking of which, your brain is made up of around 86 to a billion neurons, and then it's got 5 times as many helper cells, which are called glial cells, which have a number of different functions, including supporting and protecting your neurons. And the thing that I didn't get to quite cover, which is really, really crucial to around brain health, nutrition, and mental health, is that your brain cells actually don't physically connect to each other, which is kind of mind-blowing in itself. The way that they talk to each other instead is through chemical messengers, and they send like little emails from one neuron to another, and they're essentially called neurotransmitters. So you might have heard of some of these before. Examples include serotonin, which is a common thing that they try and target in terms of your mood because it's very, very relevant to mood. You've got others like dopamine, which I mentioned in previous podcasts, that relate to reward and you feeling that sense of pleasure when you for example, have hit a new target at the gym or whatever it might, or learn a new skill. And there are many, many more that we will discover over time. Now, to help all of these functions and the fact that your brain is such an energy hungry organ, basically taking up about 20% of your entire body's intake of energy is taken up by the brain, which makes up 2% of you. So despite its small footprint, it's actually a very, very energy hungry organ. So all of these things mean it's really, really, really important to feed ourselves well. So what I'm going to do is take you on a very quick tour of kind of where we've got to in the nutritional science around, how to eat well for your brain in particular. It's really vast to try and cover all in one podcast episode, but I'll do my very best and I'll take you on a bit of a journey. So, one of the ways that we've kind of really discovered the importance of nutrition generally and how that plays a massive role in terms of health is the way that scientists started looking at longevity. So a chap called David Bootner, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is a National Geographic fellow and author who basically built on a concept that was pioneered out of which was demographic work, looking at countries that basically had the largest proportion of people who are living very long lives. So he kind of built on you know what I'm going to talk about. So
I'm excited.
So this grew out of some work by Gianni Pez and Michele Poulain. I've probably massively butchered their names and I apologize profusely. But basically what they did is they looked at the demographic data around the world and essentially placed blue circles around the zones from which they had the highest concentration, particularly of males reaching their 100th plus birthday. And Sardinia actually came out as top. And then so Dan Buettner built on this, and he found there were 5 places in the world that people were living the longest, and that was Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Icaria in Greece, and a place interestingly in California that I didn't even realize called Loma Linda. And so he as a result of the demographic work by the other 2 that I've mentioned, he then literally took the name Blue Zones and kind of trademarked it, and has built a kind of community and an understanding of what actually you know, makes these areas of the world so set up for people to live long and healthy lives. So essentially, Dan, you know, in kind of looking at quite deeply at these areas, identified that there were several things that really contributed to, you know, these areas having such a high population of people that live for longer. And it's all centered around the way they actually live their lives. So part of it is social connections, part of it is regular physical movement, and that doesn't mean necessarily exercise, but actually just living an active life. Having the right outlook, so as Denise mentioned, managing stress, having purpose is also really important, but also it's in what they eat and the way they eat. That's actually really important. So Dan has kind of branded this in the sense of eating until 80% full. Denise, you might have a view on that. Having a slant on plants, so leaning towards more plant-based foods, and having a moderate alcohol intake. And I'll circle back to this. So basically, you know, the story goes that, you know, when we discovered sort of blue zones and the fact that people were living these long and healthy lives, we wanted to drill down into what actually components of their healthy lives really made a difference. And that's when people started really paying attention to diet. So, you know, what you'll notice is that a lot of these areas are centered around the Mediterranean. So, you know, and as a result, the Mediterranean diet and the diet pattern has been one of the largest, most strongly and consistently evidenced diets that is really good for cardiovascular health, but also for your brain health. So originally they started looking at it from a cardiovascular point of view, probably because like the death rate from cardiovascular, particularly in the Western world, is so high. And they wanted to understand what makes the Mediterranean diet so great at protecting heart health. And that's because, you know, it includes a lot of minimally processed plant-based foods. It's rich in monounsaturated fats, and I'll talk about what that means. It's low in saturated fats. It's moderate intake of meat and dairy. Not no intake, but moderate. And that actually, you know, the thing is, what you have to realize about the body is that it's all your systems are interlinked. They're not isolated from each other. So ultimately it's good for your gut health or your cardiovascular health. It's actually really important for your brain health as well. And so what they did is they extended this research and kind of looked at actually, well, can the Mediterranean diet be beneficial for other health conditions? And that's when they started really looking at its benefits for mental well-being as well. So large studies have been conducted, you know, on looking at the Mediterranean diet, supplementing it with extra virgin olive oil, and I'll explain very briefly why that is so important, and or nuts, and looking at their effect, and have found that actually it does improve symptoms of anxiety and depression in those that suffer from it by using very simple kind of Mediterranean diet principles. And so, you know, I suppose the question is, you know, okay, well, what actually within that really has the benefit? So what they then did is they then did a mashup of the of a diet that's been shown to help reduce the level of hypertension, and hypertension is high blood pressure, and it's really important we manage that, particularly when we relate it to the risk of strokes, which is basically a bleed in your brain. And so they actually did a mashup of the diet to kind of reduce the risk of hypertension plus the Mediterranean diet. And they called that the MIND diet. And that was a slant on encouraging eating berries, dark green leafy vegetables like spinaches and kales and collard greens and that sort of foods, plus other veg, nuts, again, extra virgin olive oil, whole grains, fish, legumes, and some poultry. And what they found is that actually it can prevent the formation of structural plaques, which is basically what leads to the development of Alzheimer's. So you kind of get these clumps of protein in the brain, and that causes brain cells to die, and that's what leads to symptoms of Alzheimer's. So they've actually shown that it's not just for mental health, but it's also protecting your memory and your cognitive function. So that's your obesity, or your ability to kind of reason.
Protects for that as well.
Yeah, sure. It kind of protects your ability to problem solve, to think critically, and retain your memories, and essentially helps your brain to live a longer, healthier life. So just to kind of, and I'm speed rattling through this, but because there's some other really interesting things that I kind of want to talk about. So just to highlight, what are the components of the Mediterranean diet that make it really healthy? So number one is that they rely on whole grains. So that means that they retain the outer bran in the whole grain. So if you imagine things like brown rice, they retain the outer husk. That outer husk is incredibly nutritious, and it also does include the starchy inside, which is not bad, but it's about combining the two. That's really, really important, because the outer bran will help slow that release of the starches into your bloodstream, which helps keep your energy levels more stable. Also, that bran contains a lot of benefits like B vitamins, which are massively important for your energy. It helps to build neurotransmitters, which is how your brain communicates and is massively important for your mood, but also your memory function. And also contains these wonderful things called antioxidants. Antioxidants essentially prevents your brain cells from rusting. That's as simple as I'm going to put it. So it helps to protect your brain cells and helps them live for longer. And the fiber is massively important for your gut health. And I'm going to come on to this, but I'm massively speeding through this. And your gut is really beneficial for your brain health. So maintaining a healthy set of microbes, and I'll talk about that really briefly next, is massively important. Obviously, fruits and veg, they provide plenty of vitamins and minerals. Again, they provide these antioxidants and fiber, but they also provide these really important chemicals called my God, I'm losing my own train of thought here, called polyphenols. So fruits and vegetables, they contain these massive superheroes called polyphenols. And polyphenols are these nutrients that naturally occur in plants. There are over 8,000 different types, and they all play different roles for your brain cells. So not only do they help stabilize your blood sugar levels, and that's massively important for maintaining a really balanced mood, but also prevents blood sugar spikes, which can cause you to feel anxious and irritable, but also has a knock-on effect on your long-term health. It helps to reduce it again helps to protect your brain from undergoing rusting. It promotes the growth of healthy bacteria, and also protects your brain function. Interestingly, in terms of what they use for protein, it's a lot of reliance on a big intake of legumes. So that's your beans and your pulses. Again, they provide tons of fiber and tons of nutrients. They limit their intake of dairy. It's not no dairy, it's just more limited. But they also have a really big intake of fish, so solid 2 to 3 times per week. And that's massively important because fish, in particular the oily ones like mackerel, like sardines, anchovies and salmon, they are hugely important for your brain. They help to reduce a process called inflammation, which if you imagine when you've had a burn, you get that redness, that swelling, that pain. At a low level, that can occur internally, and that is really damaging for your brain cells and for other aspects of your body. But your brain is particularly vulnerable to things like inflammation and also that process of biological rusting. So omega-3s help protect against all of that, as well as contributing to the structure of your brain cells and that insulating layer, so helping them actually work optimally. Now, what they use, interestingly, is nuts and is extra virgin olive oil as their main source of fat. And the extra virgin part is actually really important because it contains so many antioxidants, and actually it's been shown to help reduce inflammation. So again, it's just hugely protective of brain health. So if you can get extra virgin olive oil, it's available to you. I highly encourage that you use it. And despite what they say, you can cook with it. It does burn more easily. So, you're looking around temperatures of about 200-ish degrees, but that's still pretty high for most forms of cooking. So don't be afraid to use it is what I say.
I made French fries in it.
Did you really? How were they?
Fabulous.
Yeah, I bet they were.
I'm not even joking. It wasn't deep fried. It was like in a pan.
Like a shallow fry. Or saute.
Regular, because it wasn't like a massive amount of oil and then the fries submerged.
Yeah,
it was fabulous.
Yeah, I bet it was. Sounds delicious.
So don't be afraid to try. That's
absolutely. Yeah, what you want to be avoiding is the more margarines and very processed oils that are hugely refined, and unfortunately, what they tend to do is lean on biochemical pathways that increase inflammation, and we want that to drop in order to protect your brain health. What they also do is use water as their main source of hydration. Water is crucial. Not only is it important for making sure things flow through your bowels properly, which is really important for your overall sense of well-being, but also your brain health, but you can feel absolutely shattered and unwell when you are dehydrated. So it's really important that we keep up water and use that as our main source of hydration. And if it's of interest, I can provide tips on how to do that at a later point. They do consume moderate amounts of alcohol. They lean on red wine. Red wine naturally has some antioxidants, particularly ones called resveratrol, or from that family, and they can be really beneficial for brain health. But the importance is it's moderate and it's not binging. So it's like one glass in an evening is basically what they've noticed in terms of a dietary pattern.
So instead of the one apple a day is one glass of red wine a day.
I mean, I don't personally advocate that quite, but having that a few times a week is no bad thing, essentially.
No, absolutely. And it tastes nice.
I mean, I've never been into red wine. I'm not really a wine drinker. I'm more of a cocktail girl.
I'm not really the number one fan of it, but there are worse things out there.
Sure. And certainly
if that helps the inflammation, yes, please.
Bring it on. Okay, so then, one thing that we must link, and that's really important to link when you're thinking about, nutrition for your brain health, is actually how intrinsically your gut health is linked to your brain health. So there is essentially a nerve which is a superhighway between your brain and your gut, and that's called the vagus nerve. And I believe it's one of the longest traveling nerves in your body because it kind of goes from the base of your skull all the way down to your intestines. Okay, so that's actually a pretty damn long way for your nerves to travel, considering how small they normally are. So now your gut has the largest supply of nerve cells compared to any other peripheral organ in your body. So that's more than it contains the same amount of nerve fibers, which is about 400 million-ish, which is actually the same as your spinal cord, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And the vagus nerve helps act as this communication highway between your gut and your brain. It links your emotional and your thinking centers with some aspects of your intestinal function. So basically your brain will signal down to your gut things around like activating your immune system, how close your gut cell will, the cells that line your gut are how close they are together. I'll talk about this in a future episode, but basically when you undergo periods of stress, it can cause the gaps between your gut cells to kind of widen, and that basically allows for things that we don't actually want to get in our bloodstream where they can kind of cause havoc, like things like inflammation, which then knock on your brain health. But I'll cover that again at another point. It also determines sort of movement of your gut and how well things actually move through your system. Now, similarly, there's actually a lot more information that gets sent from your gut back up to your brain, right? So, It can affect the amount of neurotransmitters that you produce. So things like serotonin, which, as I mentioned, is massively important for your mood. GABA, which is my favorite neurotransmitter of all time because it's the relaxing one, and also affects the expression of my other favorite molecule, which is called BDNF, which its long form is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and that is like fertilizer for your brain cells to grow new connections. It also, your gut signals, it also helps to ensure that barrier around your gut, the lining of your gut is intact and protected. And that's really important for keeping things that we want to go, stay out of our body, which is basically means that it stays in the gut and leaves. And it keeps it out of your blood circulation, which is really important for managing things like inflammation. It also, can affect your mood, and it also can affect your systemic immune system as well. And there are other metabolites that your bacteria produce that live in your gut, which can go on to affect your brain health. So what I'm trying to highlight to you actually is that your gut has way more of a say into your brain and your emotional state than you might perhaps realize.
Hence the gut feeling.
Absolutely. So the gut feeling is real. So when you feel that butterflies in your tummy, when you are feeling anxious and you're constantly leaning the loo, I know it happens to me. That's because there is the huge highway and huge connection between the two. So that's why a lot of what is good for your gut is also very, very good for your brain. Now, one thing that's really interesting about your vagus nerve, and something that Denise really wanted me to cover, is this idea of what's called vagal tone. So your vagus nerve forms part of an axis, which basically is called the HPA axis, which is your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and it's basically the interplay of a couple of centers in your brain that I've previously mentioned. Pituitary releasing a lot of hormones and controlling hormones in a lot of different parts of your body. Your hypothalamus, which also is involved in triggering a lot of hormonal processes in your body, and also has a link to emotional centers. Basically what happens is when these two areas are activated, it sends a signal down to your adrenals. Your adrenals are these little glands that sit upon your kidneys, and they pump out the stress hormone cortisol. So when your emotional centers in your brain get activated, it causes these stress hormones to be produced, and that's what causes what's called the fight or flight response, which is, and there's also freeze too, right?
Fight, flight, or freeze.
And the classic thing is like, or example is like, if you're in front of like a tiger, you're either going to want to apparently try and fight it, or you're going to do what I'm going to do and run like the wind.
Yeah, that's the saber-toothed tiger when we were were way back when.
Exactly. So it's an innate survival response. It's activated within all of us when we get stressed. It's a very natural, very human response. Now, what they found is that your ability to kind of respond to stress and cope with stress is determined by your vagal tone. And so your vagal tone is basically how responsive your vagus nerve is to kind of these alternative states of relaxation and actually responding to stress. So there's this and how they measure vagal tone and how good your body is at regulating stress is by looking at something called heart rate variability. So heart rate variability, so and Denise knows exactly what I'm talking about. So your heart rate variability is basically the difference in terms of your heart rate between your state of stress and then your state of relaxation. And you might think that having high heart rate variability is a bad thing, but actually it's the opposite. If you have low heart rate variability, it basically means that you're not able to kind of go from like a stress to a relaxed response very readily. And so you're kind of either in between, or you're kind of at the upper level of like relaxation / you're permanently kind of a little bit stressed, to say the least. So actually what we want to do is improve vagal tone and increase heart rate variability. Now, there are a number of ways that you can do that. And what's really interesting actually is that studies have found that those that suffer from things like IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease, so things like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, but also other conditions like IBS, which is different to IBD. IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, actually show that they have reduced vagal tone. So there's basically a bit of a miscommunication between, I think, what's happening in your emotional centers that then is affecting your physiology and vice versa. So, and the one way that you can look to improve vagal tone is partly through modulating your gut bacteria. And that's a really interesting concept that kind of scientists have been looking at. And it's not just about improving your vagal tone, but because these gut bacteria form such primitive functions like producing some of the majority of your neurotransmitters, for example. So, somewhere between about 80 to 90% of your body serotonin is actually produced in your gut. And that's because serotonin helps with intestinal mobility. So basically your gut cell walls, muscles to actually move, which is probably why people, when they start SSRIs, which are medications to increase the amount of serotonin, they can often suffer with stomach problems. And that's probably why. But where was I going with that thought?
Probiotics, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, what's really fascinating is that they found that certain strains of gut bacteria, particularly those that are from the lactobacilli and bifidobacterium family, are what's called psychobiotics, in that they can actually have a direct impact on your mental health. So that's why regularly consuming probiotic foods is really, really important. It helps to alleviate anxiety, increase GABA, increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps with neuroplasticity. So it helps to mold your brain and make new brain cell connections. And it helps to drive down inflammation, which protects your brain cells. And there's two ways that you can actually grow this intestinal forest of bacteria, and you really need an ecosystem that's like a forest. And that's not only through having foods that contain bacteria, so that's things like natural or Greek yogurts, sauerkrauts, kimchis, kombuchas, which is fermented tea, or kefir, which is fermented milk, but also to consume fiber. So scientists have found that having 30 plus different plant-based foods, because it's the different types of fiber that feed different gut bacteria, that helps to grow an entire garden of different gut bugs, which you need to have in balance in order to have a really well-functioning set of bacteria. It's not just about an overgrowth of one or the other. So 30 plus plant-based foods tends to confer better diversity, and better diversity is good for gut health and therefore for brain health. And so you can do that by having lots of different types of fiber, particularly leaning on sometimes ones called prebiotics. So those have specific value in they're basically fibers that you don't really digest, but your gut bacteria do. And what they do is they ferment that fiber, and they create things called short chain fatty acids, which basically acts like rocket fuel for your gut cells and for your gut bacteria to kind of grow, proliferate, and protect your gut wall. So, and what I wanted to also highlight in this very quick whistle-stop tour of what nutrition can actually do for your brain is that it's actually, what I want to make sure we stress is that it's not just the Mediterranean diet and components of the Mediterranean diet that are the only ones that are beneficial. I want to caveat the fact that it's just been the most well studied. But there are other aspects of different foods from around the world that can be beneficial. And one great example, and my personal favorite, is green tea or matcha tea. Green tea and matcha tea are massively beneficial for brain health, particularly matcha. It contains levels of something called L-theanine, and it also does contain some caffeine and another compound which has gone completely out of my brain, which is so annoying because I read it this morning. But essentially it's the combination of all three that particularly confers benefit on brain health, because it basically what it does is L-theanine helps relax you, the caffeine helps improve focus, and together they can create this sense of focused alertness, which is something that's difficult for all of us to come by in this day and age. And it's not only just the main like macronutrients that are important, but it's also things like your spices. So ones like cinnamon, which helps to balance blood sugar levels, saffron, which anecdotally at very least has some antidepressant properties, cardamom, turmeric, which is massively important for reducing inflammation. So is ginger as well. All of them are still count towards your plant-based fibers, though those plus herbs as well. So things like, unfortunately for Denise, coriander,
parsley. I choose parsley.
Fair enough. Parsley, basil. All of these will still contain, plus the spices, all contain these polyphenols, which are these massively powerful plant-based chemicals that help to, again, nurture that forest of bacteria that live in our gut, but also can protect our brain cells. And it's what I also wanted to highlight is that it's not all about nutrition. There are many facets to mental well-being and to cognitive well-being. Nutrition is a hugely important part of that, because if you don't fuel up your brain correctly, it's not going to run as well as it can do. But it's also what you do outside of your diet that's also really important. That includes managing stress, having adequate hydration, which I don't count as nutrition as such. It's its own beast in a way, but it does form part of a nutrition plan. Did I already say managing stress?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Managing stress, hydration, sleep, exercise, or mindful movement essentially, and social connections. All of these things are hugely also really, really important for your mental well-being. And that's kind of what I wanted to cover today around the story of like nutrition, mental health, cognitive well-being, where the science is at, why it's important. And I hope I've kind of given a whistle-stop tour. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions or anything you want to add, Denise, because
I've been listening. I don't have questions as such. I think just a very few builds is that another way to look at the vagus nerve would be, correctly or incorrectly, depending who you're asking, is to look at your autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
Because by the name autonomic, you can't really control it, in the sense that you can't. Yeah. So the autonomic nervous system has two branches. One is the sympathetic and the other one is the parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is making sure that you breathe, you're alive, you have a heart rate, and it manages all of this involuntary things. So we do not have control over them. You don't have to think to breathe. You do it without thinking. But also it has a huge element of digestion. So it really, really helps guide digestion, the sympathetic nervous system. Versus the parasympathetic is the one that makes sure that you relax. Yes. Is the one that brings the happy kind of thing. And
rest and digest.
Exactly. All the rest and digest state. And the sympathetic sometimes is called the fight or flight response. It does much more than that, but sometimes to make it easy, one is rest and digest, the other one is.
So what I read, which I thought was a great distinction, is like the sympathetic is surviving,
yes,
and the parasympathetic is thriving.
Correct.
So that's the difference.
Yes, and these guys, as I said already, they on the sympathetic nervous system, you can't actively choose to act upon. It's like an on and off switch. It's either on or off. You can't really just dim the light. It's either you're running from the tiger or you're fighting the tiger, pretty much. Versus the parasympathetic nervous system, I like to call it the inbuilt relaxation system. Yeah. As soon as you know how to tap into it, and it's very simple, and I'm sure we will cover it in depth in our next episode, it allows you to improve that heart variability that Meera was telling us about.
Yep.
It allows you to actually, after a stressful period or a stressful event, to calm back down and rest and allow the body to function. And for me, that's just the angle that I've taken on both of these. If you are in a constant state of stress, i.e. your sympathetic nervous system is running the show, that system is not interested in digestion or proper digestion.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they found that actually, something that really, particularly for IBS sufferers, is using tools like mindfulness can be really helpful for managing IBS symptoms. Because you're, stress doesn't, and bear in mind, stress doesn't have to be psychological. It often is. It can be because of illness. Your immune system is activated for some reason. It's a physical problem. It doesn't always have to be psychological. No. But such is that there is such a strong control. Like there is such a strong control of that survival mechanism that it's really important to engage the other side in order to reap the benefits on your digestive system. For sure. And if you are one of our listeners maybe struggling with your digestive system, or maybe you are in a position where it's high levels of stress to the extent where it's chronic, so it's over an extended period of time, and you might think, oh my God, why is my digestive system not as it used to be? That could be your sign that you are performing at a high level of stress constantly, meaning your on switch is on and you didn't get the chance to turn it off via your inbuilt relaxation system. And mindfulness, therapy, meditation, lots of things can help, and we will cover them because it's very important we share that with everybody. Absolutely, yeah.
Some of them are simple and basic, and others are a little bit more, they take more practice. But the goal of all of these is to make sure that you come back to the balance and come back to I had a very stressful, whatever it was. The body doesn't know if it's stress from, as Meera said, from psychological point of view, or whether it's actually somebody in front of you chasing you.
Or if it's something, an underlying illness of some kind.
I have to be on because I need to survive.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you are learning how to make sure you turn it off as you need it, it just brings back the focus of those digestion, heart. It lowers your heart rate, lowers your breathing, make sure that every organ gets what it needs. That's, I think, to wrap it up in a maybe clearer way, the sympathetic side of your nervous system would be always responsible to keep you alive. Hence, it only works with those particular organs that are very, very important.
Yeah, because it diverts blood flow away from places like
guys.
Yeah, like your digestion is just not important.
Exactly, because if you need to run, you need muscles in your legs. You don't really need to go to the toilet, kind of thing. So, and if your other side of your inbuilt relaxation system, make sure that everybody's on. So if I can put it like this, the fight or flight is like only the key guys in your body are activated. With the inbuilt relaxation system, everybody gets some.
Yeah.
And that's maybe the best way to look at it also when you are thinking about stress. In high stressful situations, whichever the cause might be behind that, not all of your organs are having happy lives. And then when you come back down and you rest, digest, everybody gets a little bit of happiness inside the body, I mean.
Yeah, totally. And there's definitely nutritional ways that you can help your body cope in periods of stress, essentially. And it is as important, if not even more crucial at the point that you are stressed, that you really are taking care of physically of your body. And, I think the beacon of light is, that actually nutrition plays a role in a number of different ways about how it can help with mental and cognitive, well-being, and it plays a big role. And it doesn't matter what point you're at in your journey, whether you're at the beginning, whether you're in the middle, whether you think you're at the end. You're not. You're. It's never too late to change or do something about it, and there are benefits to be had, and science is discovering that all the time. And hopefully I will be here to help you sort through it all. I guess the tips are, or the main takeaways are, Mediterranean diet is one of the best and most well studied. Don't neglect your gut health, and you can actually help improve your gut function and your gut health by managing your stress levels, essentially, and engaging that parasympathetic rest and digest, and improving your vagal tone by things like meditation, having lots of probiotics, and
hypnosis.
And practicing other psychological tools like
Hypnosis, I just want to throw it very, I could have thrown it a lot, but I want just to mention it very briefly, less than 30 seconds. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis, meaning what you tell yourself, the stories you tell yourself, what you practice with yourself in your imagination is a form of hypnosis. And that is very much there to help guide, help settle you in a present moment, help cement the learnings, the behaviors. That it's such a good tool to have. And sometimes whenever somebody hears about the word, they think about something completely unrelated and distant, i.e. mind control. And I just wanted to point out hypnosis and IBS, hypnosis and weight management related issues, sleep, stress, burnout, a lot of other conditions has had a lot of research. It's been almost, 70, 80 years of all sorts of, randomly controlled trials and clinical trials, and this understanding of how it plays a role in helping you manage different situations. And I would just invite you all to just open your mind and maybe do your own little research. I will definitely guide you more in the following episodes.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about hypnosis because it's an area that I don't know very well at all. So,
with pleasure. It's just for now, read up yourself.
Get curious, guys. Like that's the purpose of the podcast. Get curious. We hope that we've emulated some of our passion and interest, and we hope you found this useful.
Yes.
So that was a whistle stop tour. Thank you for tuning in, guys. If you like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, give us a follow, like and subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things. Please get us noticed. We want to keep doing episodes. We want to keep filming and recording and talking to you. And if you've got any feedback, positive or negative, constructive, let us know. If there's anything that you think we're missing or anything you want us to cover, any questions you have, get in touch with us at our socials. We'll put it all out there for you. And we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.